Oh, first I thought you had the Switch 2. I'm like,
I wish.
dude, what's going on here, man? So tell us a little bit about the event itself. And I know you're probably wondering why are we talking about Switch on the Apple podcast, but it is relevant, and we're going to discuss why this matters from an Apple perspective here in a little bit. But first I wanted Fernando to give us a little behind the scenes look at, because he went to the event. It was in New York, right?
In New York.
Okay. And what was your setup like, first of all, like to record? Because you posted a video, we'll have it linked in the description. But what was your setup on the go mobile recording? Because normally that's not something that we do. But so just tell us what it was like.
Yeah, so of course, you guys know me by now. I'm a big iPhone camera guy, and that remained true through the whole event. So I brought 2 iPhones with me. I was rocking just a shift lens case, which has just some extra strong magnets for MagSafe, basically. And then I had a bunch of different accessories. So I had a tripod with me, a MagSafe mount on the tripod, so I could kind of run and gun with it. I also had a longer selfie stick for closer up shots. I had another kind of tripod mount on the bottom, but that one wasn't really standing. And then I brought a little MagSafe light that also attaches to all these accessories. So that, and then from a microphone perspective, I had a little clip-on mic, which is nice. It's called, let's do a little plug here, Full Aim X5. Look at that thing, very cool. Honestly, the easiest thing I've ever had to do. So you literally just put the receiver on not the receiver. What's the middle part called? The receiver is the one that goes on your actual
transmitter
lapel right here. Yeah, the transmitter. Put that via USB-C. It also has a lightning adapter, so if you have an older iPhone, it works too. And it brings 2 channels, so you can have up to 2 people. So I could have interviewed somebody if I really wanted to. They didn't let us interview any of the staff members, unfortunately. But they were there to talk to you if you wanted to. But that was the setup that I had. So microphone, iPhone, and that was pretty much it. And it was very easy to move around, very easy to pick up. Everything was very mobile. There were some people with less, some people with more there. Like I saw somebody with a crazy setup. Like it looked like somebody was working, like they were working, some Channel 4 News kind of camera. But again, they weren't as mobile as I was. They had to like pack up everything. And this event, you were constantly moving from station to station to station. Yeah, so that was the setup before I get into the actual event.
I wonder how do you think like the DJI, the Pocket Gimbal would have done in that situation?
I did see a few of those. There was a couple people with those. That one probably would have been a little bit better. I guess I haven't really played with the footage, and I don't know how it compares to iPhone footage.
It's good.
Yeah, I hear it's good.
Yeah.
So it probably would have done perfectly in that situation, because there was a lot of close-up shots that you had to do, a lot of finite movements that you had to show off. The one thing that was kind of annoying, and I wish Nintendo and other brands would get better at this, is just the lighting. The lighting was atrocious, and especially with Nintendo, they tried to keep it on brand with a lot of red, just red everywhere. Even the lighting was red, so we had to kind of battle that and mitigate that as much as possible. But outside of that, I think the iPhone held up pretty well.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
So you're at this event, and obviously the Switch 2 has already been announced, but here's the first time that everyone's been able to go hands-on with this new console. Yeah. And what was your impression of the Switch 2 versus the original Switch?
So we'll put pricing aside for now, because I know that's a big situation, but as a casual gamer, right, I'm not somebody who's putting hours and hours on this thing, but I do have the original Switch when it came out back in 2017. Still have it, which is impressive in its own right, and it still runs fine. Like my daughter uses it to play Mario Kart, which is crazy. But it's an upgrade in every way, right? It looks a little bit, everything's just more refined, everything's tighter, the display is much nicer. The materials that they used, it's very satisfying. It's kind of like this, it's very familiar to the Slim Folio keyboard case from the iPad, or the original Magic Keyboard for the iPad, like that type of rubbery, plasticky, but soft touch material. It's all around the Switch. And the way that I describe it is, it got a little bit more gamery, right, in terms of the look and the aesthetic, but still has, you still tell it's a Switch. It still kind of has its whimsical nature that It's kind of like, it's for fun, it's for kids, it's, you know, it's for that's what the Switch nature, I think, has always been, and they've been able to hold on to that while making it still feel and look a little bit more premium than it did before.
Gotcha. Yeah. I definitely picked up on that. It looks definitely like a more premium. The screen is obviously the biggest thing, I think. Like, it's 720p screen is just blah. The original Switch
they were
screen,
selling a 720p screen at major retailers like a week ago, which is great. And they still probably are, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, the Switch will still be, I would imagine they're not going to take that off the market. I mean, it's still selling. Yeah. I'm sure the price will drop significantly, but
it's true.
Yeah, like 1080p screen, 120 frames per second, max refresh rate. It's not OLED, which is disappointing, but it is still...
Sure that'll come.
Oh, yeah. It's still far and away a better screen. Now, graphically, what was your impression of the games? Like, what did they look like?
So, the thing about Nintendo is, you know, their IP titles, they're all very playful, right? They're all like cartoony. You got Mario, Donkey Kong, Kirby, you know, the Super Smash Bros. Franchise and stuff like that. So, it's hard to tell right away, but the screen itself is just so much better. It's just night and day better, that the experience is nicer. It's much more fluid. Everything is just like a lot crisper. Everything's much brighter as well, and it just feels like it's been modernized nicely. Now, I did play some titles that weren't Nintendo IP, like Hogwarts Legacy, which I do have on the Xbox, because Hogwarts Legacy exists for the Switch 1. And I asked what kind of sacrifices did they have to make the Hogwarts Legacy run on the Switch 1, because it had to work even on 2017 hardware, and it's a 2024 game. And he said that they did have to remove a lot. They had to remove a lot of the intricacies, a lot of the ray tracing, everything was just a little more watered down, essentially. And then obviously with the new Switch 2, they brought it up to those PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X standards, because now they can. So they were not limited at all with the new Switch 2 with a game like that, which I thought was kind of cool. Everything all around just got a lot better, which was expected. I mean, it's been 8 years since the original Switch 2, or the Switch 1.
It's hard to believe that's been that long.
Right?
But, okay, so the controllers, the Joy-Cons, because that's... like sort of it's the gimmick, I guess you could say. I don't even know if I would call it a gimmick now, because like it's kind of mainstream. Like, we've seen other consoles basically rip off the Switch plenty of times, and I mean, this is like a legitimate feature. But it's a little bit different the way it works now. So how does it work now versus the original Switch?
So with the original Switch, I mean, I have it here, so I'll show it off. You got the little rail system, right? So you kind of like slide it in, it clicks in, and then you're good to go, which is satisfying still in its own right. But the new one uses magnets. There's no rail system. There's no clasp. There's nothing aside from the magnets holding that Joy-Con onto the Nintendo Switch. So what's interesting is that obviously we got to play with a bunch of units that were there, but if you wanted to kind of like look at it bare bones like this without it being like attached or wired in, it was still an actual Switch, but it was a dead Switch. So there was no gaming. You just got to play with the physical part of the Switch, which really gave you an idea of what those magnets were like. And I don't know what they're using in there, but they are very strong. And you can physically forcefully take them off. But even if you do that, there's nothing that can break, because there's nothing holding it on. I thought there was maybe, because there is a button to release the magnet, to make it easy to release. It just kind of pushes
it away, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's all it does. I thought it was maybe releasing something like a hook or clasp, but no.
So did I, yeah.
So you can forcefully take it off, but it's good to know that nothing's going to break if you do end up doing it that way. But obviously they want you to use the little button to release it. It is very satisfying. And I think the way that they implemented the magnets, amazing.
Nice.
For sure.
They could still use their little marketing thing. You know how they have that little switch sound?
Yeah, like bling.
Yeah, now they can just do it with the magnets. So that's cool. So I mean, just overall, like compared to other events that you've been to, how would you say Nintendo just did overall in just their press presentation and just the overall? I know you complained about the lighting and stuff, but just overall, what is your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, lighting aside, I thought it was pretty organized. I want to say there was probably... So that the way they structured this was, we're part of media, so we got the early look before the embargo released, and then the next day was like the influencers and creators. So we saw some other videos released yesterday, and then from Friday, which is today, to Sunday, about 2 months ago, the public was allowed to register for a lottery, which is kind of cool. And they handed out tickets. So like now people that won that lottery are able to go and play and basically go through the same exact experience that I went through. So they're opening it. It's not to the public, but if you were able to register and get that lottery ticket, then you're able to go play with it. But it was very organized. You know, there was probably 80 to 100 media people there, and they were funneling us in groups. Every section, every time we had like 20 minutes with every little station that they gave us. And then at one point, once everybody got to try everything once, it was kind of just do whatever you want. You know, you have free range of the entire facility, play with whatever section you want. And then, so when I went back around the second time, that's when I got a little bit more intimate with the device, got some hands-on time, was able to not feel stressed with somebody else needing to come behind me. And it was just it was a well organized event, in my opinion. Let's get that lighting fixed, you know?
Right, for sure. So, and that's kind of the thing. All right, one last little thing. Did they go in depth, like the online element? Because I know we saw Super Mario Kart World, which is like sort of like I don't know if you ever played that game Burnout. It's like an open world racing game, I guess you call it. So the new Mario Kart looks more like that, as far as instead of like just going to a menu system and then going to your Grand Prix races or whatever, you actually drive to the next track through that open world. So there's like a huge map, and
it's gigantic.
Yeah. So the online aspect, did they touch on anything about that? Because that's always been an Achilles heel of Nintendo, right? Like
it's always been,
always been like really gimped because they care about children and like just negative experiences online. So I totally get that. But is there anything different this time around that you were able to find out?
I mean, they definitely had a big push towards online, not just content, but just online experience. Like they really wanted to bring this idea of we're building a community, right? Like if you have a Switch, you're able to play with other people that have Switches, and there's a lot less friction when it comes to using the new Switch with somebody that has the old Switch and the Switch Lite. And they wanted to bring this idea of social interaction, whether you are physically together or virtually together. So now they've included a couple of things to really emphasize this. First and foremost, every single Joy-Con and first-party Pro controller will have this new dedicated chat button on the right side, which opens up this kind of like Zoom call, but for gaming, basically platform or interaction or portal. And you can have up to 24 people, which is crazy. I think that would be a little confusing, but they kind of just showed it off with 4 people, and it's essentially what it sounds like. You know, you're able to talk to people, interact with people, screen share, play the same game together, or just play different games but still talk to each other because you're online at the same time. And then there's even a new first-party camera, which is a $50 accessory, which we'll get to the pricing kind of at the end here. Which the camera itself wasn't impressive because they didn't give any specs. Like I don't know if it was 1080p or 4K or whatever the case was, but what's impressive about it is that one single camera can basically head track 4 different people in the same room and give you 4 different video feeds at the same time.
Sort of like the what do they call it?
Center stage.
Center stage, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like Center Stage to a degree, right?
It's exactly like Center Stage.
Yeah, one camera, multiple feeds.
Yeah, and it's able to like smartly crop out each person's head.
That's neat. Yeah, because who wants 4 cameras sitting around? Now, so it doesn't actually move. So it's not like a PTZ or anything like that. It's just a static camera. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a super ultra wide camera. They didn't even give us a field of view or anything like that. But yeah. I mean, it's for $50. Like it's got, maybe it's 4K. But something they did do in all the press material and the videos is that they did show that it's a little grainy. It's a little pixelated gameplay and video feeds of people when they were showing the demo of what was going on. And I think that was kind of a good thing because it kind of showed you what it would realistically be like. Like if they showed us 4K like streaming of everybody at all times, and then we got it in hand and everybody was just like kind of laggy and a little jittery, then people would be like, hey, I expected way better. But I think the fact that they're kind of almost dumbing it down a little bit, I think helped out.
Yeah. For one thing, Nintendo's always been like lagging behind. They had the whole friend code system, and that was always weird. So it sounds like it's a lot better this time around. They're really putting genuine like this legitimately feels like the era when Nintendo's taking online seriously for the very, very, very first time. I mean, they've had online before, but this is like the first time I think that they've really focused on it. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Do you remember the Kinect with the Xbox 360?
I think I might have had that.
It came with the Xbox 360. But
Okay.
basically, that's the vibe I was getting. The Kinect, I remember, was supposed to like help track what you were doing. It's supposed to kind of help and compete with Wii Sports back in the day.
Okay, was that like that little
It was horizontal,
hexagon?
yeah. It was like long ways like this. 'Cause
Okay,
it had a camera and like a couple sensors as well. But that's the vibe that this new camera was giving me.
Okay, what was the thing that was like? It was like an octagon that you would put on the floor. Remember that?
Oh, that I do remember. I do remember that. I forget what that was.
That's not called Kinect. That was something else, I guess.
It might have been part of like a Kinect bundle. I remember they were pushing it hard when the first Xbox 360 came out, way back then. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought everything was nice. Everything was a lot tighter, cleaner. There's accessories that you can add on to add experiences if you want to do it, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. What I like about the Switch is that it can be your handheld, but now that we do have the new dock with a fan, which is nice, and it supports 4K upscaling, it'll look a lot nicer, right?
That's huge.
4K in 2025 is a must. If they didn't do that, out the window. And then the internal storage also went up to 256 compared to 32. That's crazy. That was in the last one. And it still uses micro SD cards, but now they're micro express SD cards. So they're a little bit more expensive, although they're not crazy. I think you can get like 256 gigs for like $50, which isn't insane. It's a little expensive, but if you want to double up your storage, you can do that. And now I think they're up to 1 terabyte right now.
Okay.
Which is cool.
Yeah. So yeah, this sounds like a legitimate thing. It sounds exciting. What's the price and launch date?
So launch date is June 5th. I believe you can pre-order starting April 9th. And I would recommend pre-ordering with like major retailers because Nintendo's doing something weird, which I think is good because they're trying to do some anti-scalping measures. So they're basically giving priority to people who actually use their Switch. And I guess since it's all online and connected to the internet, they have data to show off like what people are doing.
Oh man, I'm not getting one then that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't get one through
you
Nintendo
will never
either.
play this thing, man.
I know. I recently, like, once I knew that I was going to the event, I picked my Nintendo back up probably like 3
you
weeks
just
ago.
turned it on.
Yeah, like,
got a
like I
little
was
thing
like,
that-
I was like, you know. But yeah, so so June 5th it comes out, and then it's $450 for the Nintendo Switch. There is a $500 version that comes with Mario Party World as a bundle, and like the other accessories. So the camera is $50, the Pro controller is $80. The Joy-Cons, if you buy two new ones, are $90. So it starts to add up. It starts to add up nicely. But for $450, you get the console with everything that you need, like the dock, the Joy-Cons, of course, the little Joy-Con holder for being able to unplug it. So yeah, $450. People seem upset about it, but like I don't know. I'm not like. Yes, it's expensive, but I think it's justified with everything that's going on. You know what I mean?
I think it's pricey, but I mean, we like even in the last 8 years, like inflation and stuff has gotten crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to think back. Like I'm old enough to remember when Nintendo games cost $80. Like it was like
N64
$79
games.
I'm talking about regular Nintendo.
Oh, like NES, like way
NES were very pricey, and that was in $1989, $90, right? So, yeah, I mean,
I saw somebody tweet out an old ad from a 2001 Toys R Us kind of like catalog, and Nintendo 64 games were $59, like Pokemon Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Mario Party, Mario 64.
all of them,
Those were
the first party titles were $60, and that was actually cheaper than some of the Super Nintendo and NES games, which but I don't know, just the stigma of $450, $500 is pricey for Nintendo because they've always historically been cheaper than PlayStation and Xbox.
Yeah.
But now you're getting up into that same territory.
Yeah, because I guess the argument is you can get an Xbox Series S for what, like $250, the digital edition, or like maybe $300 now. And then the Series X is 500, I think. I could be speaking out of turn there. I don't really know the price points there, but so I guess it is expensive if you compare it to them, but it is not. I don't know. I guess from an inflation standpoint and from the fact that games have been the same price for 25 years, I think it's okay that they. And like not everybody. The good thing here is that there aren't that many exclusive Switch 2 games. I think there's only a couple. And most of these games are still going to do that thing where they're going to release for Switch 1 and for Switch 2. So if you have a Switch 1 OLED and you don't want to spend the money right away, like I don't think it's like, yes, it looks nicer, the form factor's cooler, it's a better like internal computer, although we don't know the specs about it because Nintendo, they're like Apple, they don't really care about releasing the actual specs. You still get a 95% of the experience on an OLED Switch, in my opinion. It's just a matter if you want the new hardware.
Yeah, except if you want to play Super Mario Kart World, which everyone is going to want to do. Like, so yeah, just throw that out the window, dude. No one's wanting to play Mario Kart 8, which is basically the same game for the last who knows how long.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're ready to move on, man. So that looks very exciting. I'm excited about the Mario Kart World. It looks fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably pick one up, which will be fun. See what that's like. Unfortunately, I don't know if I'll get a review unit or anything like that. But if we do, stay tuned. Maybe we'll do a little review or something and see. Maybe put it up to the test against like an iPad mini. Because I'm surprised Apple hasn't really doubled down or tripled down or done anything with the iPad mini to compete in this space.
Yeah. And that's kind of the direction we want to take the rest of the podcast is, all right, so first of all, the state of gaming now is to the point where when Nintendo released the original Switch, right?
Yeah.
They were at that. It wasn't a guaranteed hit. It almost felt like it was like you're in the ninth inning and you have 2 strikeouts and like your star player is up to bat and you need to score to win.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, because they had the Wii, which was crazy successful.
Which is a hit. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they followed it up with that Wii U, which is a bomb. And then they went through like 10 to 15 years of all these different Nintendo DS iterations, like Nintendo DS, DS Lite, the 3D, the 3D XL. There was like so many different ones, but they were all the same. They were the same console, just like better hardware. So, yeah, they just like kind of merged their home console and their portable consoles, and then the Switch 1 came out. And like you said, I don't think they knew how popular it was going to be. They had no idea.
No one had any clue that this was going to be the phenomenon that it turned out to be. Like, it truly is. It's like the second coming of the Wii, but even more, I think.
Yeah.
Arguably, this is their best console ever. Like, arguably. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you could make an argument that it's their most important console ever. Obviously, the original NES was the most important because it put them on the map. But the Switch came at such a pivotal time for Nintendo, for console gaming in general, but especially Nintendo because you had potential, ones that were going to eat their lunch. Apple being one of them. It was, I mean, we heard for years, oh, well, Nintendo's dead because the iPhone gaming is going to take over. I thought that. Like, I thought
mobile gaming was going to be the future.
So did I, man. Like it at one point, it seemed like Nintendo was done for. Like, it really did. I feel like it was just an inevitable thing. Eventually, they're going to move all of their IP over and basically turn into Sega.
Yeah.
Basically turn into Sega. Basically, they're just going to publish games on other consoles, publish games on iPhone. And we started to see some Nintendo games come out.
Yeah, I remember like Mario Kart kind of coming out for the iPhone. But I remember not liking it. I don't know what it was.
No, I hated it. Apparently, it's actually fairly popular though, because I noticed like in some of the, even some of the new tracks for the Mario Kart, they brought in some of the Mario Kart Tour tracks.
Oh, really?
For the actual Nintendo Switch.
Okay.
So I mean, apparently it's a little bit more popular than I would have guessed, but I had never liked the smartphone version of Mario Kart or any Nintendo smartphone game for that matter. So I don't know. This came at such a pivotal time, and now looking back, it's just kind of amazing to see how the tables have turned.
Because you would think from a hardware and software standpoint, right? You grab one of those Joy-Con like controllers that like extend to then like fit in your iPhone or even your iPad Mini. We have USB-C. The displays on iPhones are better. I guess now the refresh rate's the same, but still, the App Store is. I would argue there's more games on the App Store, right? Maybe not the same quality, not the same IP, but more games to choose from. So I don't know how Apple hasn't, or maybe it's just an IP thing. People just love Mario. People just love Pokemon. People just love Kirby, and they love the nostalgia of Nintendo. And I think Nintendo knows that, and they're holding on to that for dear life. And I think they're trying to usher in this. They're in the situation where they're appealing to people who grew up with Nintendo, like us, where they remember the good old days, quote unquote. But then they're also appealing to like their kids and like the younger generation. So like everybody in the household can play the Switch versus like something about the Xbox and the PlayStation still feels a little bit more teenager, adulty, young adult because of the titles and things like that. It seems a little bit more, something like that.
It just doesn't.
So I think that's Nintendo's superpower.
1,000%. Like I don't have a PlayStation. I don't have an Xbox. I have no interest in either one of them. Mm-hmm. For me personally, the type of games that generally are, that you find on those consoles, I have no interest in whatsoever. And that's another thing about this new generation is that you don't really need a super, super powerful console to be a success. Like, and we see that like games, think about what's one of the biggest games we've seen in the last decade, Minecraft, right?
Minecraft, yeah. That's literally huge. Just pixels on a screen.
Yeah. I mean, even like more, some of the more, I guess, edgier popular games like Fortnite, that's not super graphic intense either. And so these are the type of games that it's almost like the perfect, almost a perfect scenario, because you now have the point where you don't really need like super, super powerful graphics to make a compelling game that people want to play. Like it's not all about graphics like it used to be. Less so now, in my opinion, than like back in the console war days where
I remember
graphics. Graphics meant everything, right?
Remember when they had like, I think it was like NBA Live in the 2000s where like the players would start like sweating when they're on the free throw line and like, and I remember I was like, that's crazy, that's so cool. But now it's like I don't really care. Like that doesn't matter to me,
Yeah, and it's just like it's diminishing returns. So that to me has worked out largely in Nintendo's favor. In that matter.
Big time.
But it also makes it baffling as to why has Apple had struggled so much. Like they have Apple Arcade. You can of course use Xbox controllers with all their hardware basically, or PlayStation controllers, but there's never been a really cohesive strategy. There's never been a just strategy to attack this. Like they have goals, but there's no strategy involved. So it's just like, we have a goal to have a streaming or an Apple Arcade, like pay a subscription, and then you get all these games. Okay, but what's the strategy?
Yeah,
like, there's no real strategy there, and it's just like it's almost like they're just throwing tomatoes at the wall or spaghetti at the wall, and there's no cohesiveness.
Yeah, and for me, it's like it's similar to Apple TV. Although Apple TV, they've been pushing it since like Severance has gone popular and things like that. But same idea. Like Apple TV has fantastic shows, but not a lot of people know about it because like they don't market it correctly, or like you said, there's no plan or strategy to go out and promote Apple TV. I would argue Apple TV is very HBO-like in terms of the quality of the shows. People don't know about it. Apple hasn't made people want to care about it for some reason, and HBO is still, in my opinion, eating Apple TV's lunch, charging more and getting more users. Albeit maybe Apple has more numbers, but that's just because people have iPhones and they have like free trials and stuff like that. But I think it's the same problem. There's no cohesion and no marketing plan to get it out there. Because Apple Arcade is decent. There's a good amount of games on there. You got NBA 2K. You got some nice titles in there, and they work like you said. They work well with controllers. They work well on the iPad. You have different form factors you can play them in, and it's just people just think it's not real gaming. I think.
And it's just like people can see, like it's almost the whole thing, and we'll cut this short because it's getting long. But like you can tell when somebody genuinely is like cares about what you're saying, or like if you have a conversation with somebody, you can tell. I don't know what it is, but you can tell someone genuinely cares, or if they're just there and they're just like and they're not really engaged, and you can tell if people care about you, right?
Yeah.
And people can tell if you truly care about what you're putting out there, right? It's very easy to see that. And it's clear that, yeah, Apple's doing stuff, but they don't really care because there's not a true strategy. There's nothing super innovative about anything that they are doing in the gaming space, where there is just an infinite amount of opportunity to have done some really interesting things. And they kind of just dropped the ball. And I'm not trying to pile on because I know right now it's super popular to say Apple's doomed. I know that.
Yeah. Apple will be fine, everybody.
But it is like there's just so much opportunity that was wasted. They have an unlimited budget. They could have done some really, really cool things. They could have bought some really great software companies, game companies. They could have done, I mean, there's so many things they could have done strategically, hardware wise. They could have made I'm not saying completely rip off the Switch, but they could have done something with the iPhone form factor, or with the iPad mini form factor for that matter. More gaming centric. They could have released a gaming console, so to speak. There's just they could have released their own controller. That would have gone a long way with the Apple aesthetic. That would have gone a long way to show their seriousness of this, and they just didn't do any of it. They took basically the easiest route, and it's all about services revenue, and it's all about short-term thinking and not really thinking long-term about the strategy. So I don't know. It's
one last thing to mention there about people caring. When I was at this event, and also kind of going back to the last conversation we had about live keynotes, we watched the Nintendo Direct keynote together at this event. And again, this is grown adults, like in their 40s, maybe 50s, like cheering when like Zelda was on, you know, when they were like, Zelda's coming out, or cheering when the new Pokemon game trailer came out. And like that, I haven't felt that in a very long time in any tech environment, right? So it was very cool, and you could tell like a lot of people cared about what Nintendo was doing because, again, they probably grew up with it. They put a lot of time into it in previous generations, and Nintendo is doing what their users want. You know, yes, people were upset about the price and stuff like that, but it was cool to feel that like people were like so happy that stuff was coming out and that they're finally like the new Donkey Kong game. Like people have been wanting an open world Donkey Kong game for a long time apparently, because they had one with the N64. And they were like, yeah, finally, like, let's go. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, you know? So Apple, bring it back, man. Some live events.
For sure, man. Yeah. But anyway, so that's just a recap of the Switch. You're probably wondering, like, what does the Switch have to do with Apple? But actually quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot of intersections there that we could talk about. We could talk more about this, but I'm interested to hear what the people who are listening have to think and have to say about it. What do you guys think? Do you think the Switch 2 is going to be a hit? Do you think Apple dropped the ball in gaming? Do you think that they have a chance at all in this space going forward? So let us know down below.
Yeah, let us know. And let us know if you're switching, no pun intended, if you're upgrading to the new Switch 2, you know? Because I would make an argument that maybe the OLED Switch 1, for a lot of people, is still more than good enough. And still gives you a lot of the same experiences that the Switch 2 is giving you. But let's see how it goes. I'm curious.
No Mario Kart world, man.
I know, the Mario Kart world. That's a tough one.
It's over, man. See, that's the thing about Nintendo, though. Like, they will put out that one game that that's all they really need. So all you really need is the one killer title. And that's sort of the thing, goes back to Vision Pro. Like, there was never that killer app. Yeah. All you need is one. All you need is one, and then you can just build on that. Yeah.
Like, I literally have an Xbox for one game, NCAA 25.
Yep. That's all you need.
That's the only reason.
Yep.
If that came to Switch, maybe I just get a Switch and get rid of my Xbox, you know? Let's see.